So we have seen Hamza declaring openly that he has declared a sort of war on technocracy like Instagram and TikTok because they are apps that are aimed to induce depression and reduce the attention span. In fact, in Instagram, everyone posts photos of having good lives, while in reality, they only post their best moments. Like all of us, we have both good moments and bad moments. And so Instagram induces depression, and then there's TikTok, which is an application made by Chinese government in order to weaken the United States, and it's written on the Chinese government. Like there was a document I've seen, official from the Chinese, pretty disgusting. While the Chinese version of TikTok induces a version of patriotism to help them fight, because China is preparing for a war. Hamza suggested to uninstall Instagram and TikTok because they are bad applications. They induce your health in a negative manner. You will feel more depressed, healthier, less healthy physically and mentally. And in fact, I have uninstalled both of them, and I feel good about it. So we have to dig about this problem a little bit deeper and see how what caused all of this, like here in this photo. The silent pandemics: obesity, porn addiction, vitamin D deficiency, doping, fertility rates, decreasing testosterone levels. But you don't think about them because they aren't on the news 24 out of 7. And in fact, this testosterone has decreased from 1000 on average to 300, which is insane. Testosterone is a thing that helps us to be violent, to think for ourselves critically. But the reason of this will be clear on the further in the video. And I have to say, if only 10% of what I'm going to say is true, we are in deep shit. Okay, so it all starts with BlackRock, which is the most powerful investment company in the world. And I'm going to show you the Wikipedia page of it afterwards. It started in 1988 by Larry Fink, and has grown exponentially. It has doubled its value from 4 trillion to 9 trillion in just 5 years. And if you think if that I'm lying, that's in the official Wikipedia page, there was here $10 trillion. It has $10 trillion. And yeah, they also have not too much of a positive background. They are pretty dark. They also negated the rights to indigenous people, like in Brazil and Australia. So BlackRock, what does BlackRock do with the $10 trillion? Well, BlackRock has influenced over 90% of the media, and the media, if you can control the media, you can control the world. And also there's another thing, even worse than this, maybe. The banks, they control pretty much all the banks of the world. These are also some examples: Deutsche Bank, Commerzbank, and Lloyds Bank in the United Kingdom. They are all controlled by BlackRock. So if you have money in your bank, you have technically invested into BlackRock. Sorry. They also have influence over the 7 major United States banks, and pretty much every country in the world, like New Zealand, Australia, Italy. Pretty much everywhere their influence is everywhere. So I'm going to watch a video from Moon, which is a great commentary YouTuber. He very deserved success of 500,000 subscribers. Okay.
One of the ways BlackRock controls the world so well is through its control of the media. Together with Vanguard, an investment company they also partly own, BlackRock now controls 18% of Fox, 16% of CBS, 13% of Comcast, who themselves own NBC, MSNBC, CNBC, and Sky, and they even own 12% of Disney. This is very important because it means that for any of these companies to decide on company policy, they must now also consult with BlackRock before doing so. And it's just the same with big tech. BlackRock is now the biggest institutional investor in Google, Facebook, Twitter, Amazon, and so many more. I mean, the list of their investments in companies is just endless. And by extending its reach in such a dramatic way, BlackRock now has control over more than 90% of the media, which might also be why you've never heard of them. Because controlling the media is a very important step for BlackRock to take over the world. If everyone knew the consequences of BlackRock owning over $9.5 trillion in assets, some questions might start to be raised. And you see, BlackRock's control isn't just extending through information in the media, but also through the entire world's economic and political data. And as I mentioned before, this is all done through Aladdin, where Aladdin accurately predicts the outcome of every single investment. But the question is, where does Aladdin get this information from? Well, that's where things become very jarring. You see, because of BlackRock's ownership of banks, insurance companies, social media giants, and even pension funds, Aladdin now possesses huge amounts of personal data on everyone who has ever knowingly or unknowingly given BlackRock money. And with such a powerful tool under their arsenal, everyone now wants a piece of the pie. And by controlling this much data, BlackRock now controls governments, because BlackRock can use this data to sway companies and even government decisions. For example, BlackRock successfully lobbied to get a contract to manage the EU's regulation of banks. However, this backroom deal is now being investigated, as BlackRock themselves own the banks they should be regulating. And this is just one of the many examples of these sorts of actions. A 2016 study in the Journal of Finance documented that investment companies like BlackRock show, quote, widespread behind-the-scenes intervention in the companies that they own stakes in. And this problem only gets worse as BlackRock owns stakes in nearly all major publicly traded companies. And now with our current recession, BlackRock is buying as much homes and real estate as possible, causing regular house prices to skyrocket. BlackRock profits when a society doesn't own their homes but rents, because BlackRock can squeeze even more money out of the economy through mortgaging off these artificially inflated homes. But this whole situation becomes even more sinister when you realize BlackRock's power is now being compromised by other actors. For example, in August 2020, BlackRock became the first foreign company to be allowed access into China's mutual fund industry.
Okay, so Malcolm X, the media's most powerful entity on earth. They have the power to make the innocent guilty and to make the guilty innocent, and that's power, because they control the mind of the masses. Yes, as we've seen, 18% of Fox News, 16% of CBS, 13% of CBC, and 12% of Disney. They all serve the purpose to control the media and also hide themselves. Luckily, we discovered them recently. There have been videos of Moon, Sorella Moore, and Jake Ran. I have the links in the description. And also there's this site that describes all the problems of BlackRock, and it's a whole site of their problems, like they invest in climate destruction. As I said, they prevent the rights of the indigenous, they destroy the environment, and so on and so on. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Then now I would want to look at a video that describes the year 1971, because this is going to be a recurring topic.
For the decades leading up to 1971, the US experienced a ton of real massive growth. Workers went from making $675 a year, or $19,000 in today's money, to more than $56,000 in today's money by the late 60s. People enjoyed paid leave and sick days for the first time, they could pay off student loans, buy houses and cars, and enjoyed a financially stable life. Payroll increased by at least 32% in the 60s alone. Fiber optic cables, LEDs, weather satellites, the heart pacemaker, the internet, DRAM for computers, lasers were all invented in the 60s alone. We landed on the moon. The upper, middle, and lower classes were all moving up together in harmony. But then, 1971 hits, and something really weird happens. The economy kept growing, except it was no longer everyone getting richer together. Now it was only the rich getting richer, and the middle and lower class basically flatlined. To this day.
Even with globalization, even with the computer revolution, the internet revolution, the biotech revolution, it somehow has not added up to quite as much of a difference as people thought. And if you were in the mid-1960s, people thought it was going to be the Jetsons, you're going to have vacation trips on the moon and flying cars and robots doing all your work. And it hasn't quite happened. It's been just much slower.
Right. The only robot that does any work that I'm aware of is the Roomba little carpet sweeper.
There isn't as much progress happening as advertised, and that rather than racing towards utopia or dystopia, the much bigger problem is one of relative stagnation. It sort of manifests economically, and that for the first time we have a younger generation that's not clearly doing better than their parents.
Family incomes are up, some from the late 60s, but it's not clear that's the right metric, because you have a lot of families where both spouses are working, and that's very different from the world of the late 60s.
Okay.
And
The inflation rate skyrocketed from around 4% at the start of 1971 to more than double at 8.8% in 1973. By the end of the 70s, it would go up to 12%. Household debt exploded exponentially after 1971. So while lower and middle class incomes stayed stagnant, they were simultaneously getting shackled in debt. College tuition also suspiciously started skyrocketing after 1971. And ask yourself, how many new, real, physical, truly revolutionary technologies like LEDs or fiber optics have we really seen in the last few decades besides reusable rockets? Not much. Something happened. The rules of the game were changed. It was no longer a level playing field. And the best part is that it slipped right underneath the noses of the middle and lower class. And all the signs point back to this one year, 1971. It was the year that rearranged the very fabric of society as we know it. But to understand what happened, we have to take a journey all the way back to World War I. And it
So, 1971 was the year when the rich people decided to take control over the lives of poor people by making them poorer and weaker with the media sources. And 1971 is also the year where drugs have been made illegal. But that's just bullshit, pure bullshit, because there is still tobacco and alcohol. Like the government does not want you to be healthy. Remember that. There are drugs and there are anti-drugs like psychedelics. They mix the drugs that hurt people like cocaine, marijuana, cannabis with anti-drugs like psychedelics and LSD. But so we have seen videos of Jordan Peterson and Roland Griffiths, the psychology of psychedelics. So Ronald Griffiths did experiments with psychedelics on cancer patients, and what they discovered is that the patients with cancer had a lower had a lower fear of death. They feared less death. And we've seen also in the Immortality King by Brian C. Muralescu that one of the most famous phrases is when you die before you die, you won't die when you die. So what does that mean? Psychedelics made DMT accessible. DMT is a part of the brain which it's a substance of our brain which is used when we are on a death state, like when we are almost in a coma state, we are almost to die. we are near death and we see our lives pass through in like 7 seconds. The only thing is that psychedelics last 2 hours. So when you use psychedelics, you realize that one day you will die. And the Stoics and Heidegger realized that the fear of death, the fact that we acknowledge that one day we will die, makes us authentic man, and the inauthentic man lives his life like one day he will never die. But psychedelics make you realize that one day you will die. And we saw that in the philosophy of the soul as well, that there were people who surpassed the games. They choose life over death. That after such choice, they became better persons. There was an inspirational book on the 7th movie that describes such experience. So the government wants you not to use psychedelics, and he mixes it with drugs. But luckily, we now have discovered that psychedelics heal PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and depression. So psychedelics must be made legal as soon as possible. Okay, now is the worst part. That was just the tip of the iceberg. Now, World Economic Forum, founded by Klaus Schwab, elected by no one, and in what year? Exactly, 1971. 1971. Think about it. Salaries started going stagnant, the economy was stagnant, and the World Economic Forum was established in Davos, in Switzerland. And also psychedelics, so you can't redeem yourself and see the truth. So it's a whole fucking rabbit hole. We're going to see it with the video of Awaken with JBP, that I think he done a great video. He's done a great video. We see.
One of the features of this fourth industrial revolution is that it doesn't change what we are doing, but it changes us.
The difference of this fourth industrial revolution is it doesn't change what you are doing, it changes you. If you take genetic editing, right. Just as an example, it's you who are changed, and of course this has a big impact on your identity.
Editing your genes? Cool, I'll explain that later. But first, why do so many people consider this guy, Klaus Schwab, to be the most dangerous man in the world? Well, there's some reasons. A lot of them. You might remember Klaus Schwab as the puddle of liquefied feces who said, by 2030, you'll own nothing and be happy about it. Translated, that probably means by 2030, he'll own everything and he'll be happy about it. But how does he expect you to own nothing and be happy about it? Oh, he's got a plan. Now, I'll tell you about it in a minute. But before I do, a little bit about Klaus Schwab. He's the author of COVID-19, The Great Reset. What a grand opportunity indeed. Oh, and his book was published on July 9th, 2020. Wonder how he got it written and published that fast. It's almost like maybe he pre-wrote it before he started the pandemic. Before the pandemic started. Old Klaus is also the founder and chairman of the World Economic Forum, an organization that faces the public with very noble-sounding goals of creating a better world. Fear-mongering about climate change and disease are big goals of theirs. Welcome to Davos. Just park your private jet over there and then go inside and pretend to be concerned about climate change. Klaus and the World Economic Forum want a worldwide digital ID system that determines your access to goods and services. It would monitor your online behavior, purchases, and biometrics. It kind of seems like he just wants to do away with the whole democratic process and give all the power to the state and whoever runs the state, the deep state. But that's based on both his words and actions, so it's probably an inaccurate observation. Was Dr. Evil's character based on this reptile? Mr. Schwab writes the following. One of the greatest lessons of the past 5 centuries in Europe and America is this. Acute crisis contribute to boosting the power of the state. It's always been the case, and there is no reason why it should be different with the pandemic. Nobody ever elected...
Okay, yeah. A lot to digest. I just wanted to add one thing. Yeah, of course, there's always something more negative to add. Don't worry, it always gets worse. Klaus Schwab in his book wrote that humans are useless eaters and that the earth is made only for 3 billion humans. Yes.
Elected Klaus Schwab to anything. This all just sounds like conspiracy, doesn't it? The World Economic Forum are good guys. Haven't you seen the headlines they pay for? Go green, right? Right? That's probably right. They truly are good guys. Accordingly, you'll be excited to hear that the lineup of World Economic Forum speakers at their annual gathering of elites in Davos included such benevolent humanitarians like Xi Jinping, the leader of the Chinese Communist Party, who's currently committing genocide, Anthony Fauci, who's arguably currently involved in crimes against humanity, and Bill Gates, who's arguably currently involved in crimes against humanity, and Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison, who's arguably currently involved in crimes against humanity. What a great lineup! But my favorite Economic Forum speaker of all time is this reptile, Klaus Schwab's top advisor, Dr. Yuval Noah Harari. Let's see what he has to say.
Data might enable human elites to do something even more radical than just build digital dictatorships. By hacking organisms, elites may gain the power to re-engineer the future of life itself. Because once you can hack something, you can usually also engineer it.
Elites hacking organisms and re-engineering life itself? Well, he's not talking about doing that to people, is he?
Now, in the past, many tyrants and governments wanted to do it, but nobody understood biology well enough, and nobody had enough computing power and data to hack millions of people. Neither the Gestapo nor the KGB could do it. But soon, at least some corporations and governments will be able to systematically hack all the people.
Well, I guess he was talking about doing that to people. All people, to be specific.
And if indeed we succeed in hacking and engineering life, this will be not just the greatest revolution in the history of humanity. This will be the greatest revolution in biology since the very beginning of life 4 billion years ago. For 4 billion years, nothing fundamental changed.
Not playing God, are you? Because that usually works out super well.
Science is replacing evolution by natural selection with evolution by intelligent design. Not the intelligent design of some God above the clouds.
Oh, you are playing God. Say more.
Evolution by natural selection with evolution by intelligent design. Not the intelligent design of some God above the clouds, but our intelligent design and the intelligent design of our clouds, the IBM cloud, the Microsoft cloud, these are the new driving forces of evolution.
Gosh, you wouldn't by chance have a plan in place on how to control people with your cloud technology, would you? And that plan isn't by chance already being implemented, is it?
Today, we have the technology to hack human beings on a massive scale.
Oh, so you could implement it.
In this time of crisis, you have to follow science. It's often said that you should never allow a good crisis to go to waste.
Sounds familiar. And I guess you are implementing it already. Didn't anyone bother telling this guy not to say any of this out loud on camera? It's a lot of evidence.
Surveillance. People could look back in 100 years and identify the coronavirus epidemic as the moment when a new regime of surveillance took over, especially surveillance under the skin. My brain, my body, my life, does it belong to me or to some corporation or to the government or perhaps to the human collective?
This guy's revealing the whole plan. He's going to ruin it. The World Economic Forum, out for the good of humanity. You'll own nothing, not even your own DNA, if we have our way.
Yep. we are in deep shit. Yep. Yeah. I don't know if Noel Harari or whatever that name was that talk about transhumanism is real. Well, see more about it. I don't really know, but I think that there's the possibility if we do nothing. The World Economic Forum has a never-ending supply of money thanks to Amazon, Nestle, Chevron, Volkswagen, and many other companies. We know Amazon, how they treat their workers, Nestle, which has done crimes against humanity, such as Volkswagen and Chevron. But you can see the whole list of partners here, which I will put in the description. So maybe transhumanism will not be possible. The point is that Klaus Schwab has done a standing ovation to Xi Jinping for his social credit system and his economic achievements. Well, this didn't age well since China apparently is on the verge of collapse and everyone will be suffering from it. So anyways, that's it. Social credit system is probably the thing that is going to be implemented in a lot of other countries, and some examples are Italy, Bologna, and the Australian city of Darwin. And the source is a terrifying prediction for 2030 with the Great Reset by Sorella Moore Finance, another great channel which I absolutely recommend. So, if we do nothing, social credit is going to be worldwide spread. Luckily, this crisis caused the weakening but also strengthening of more people, like you who saw the Zids movement. We are starting to rise up with people like Hamza that are rational thinkers, critical thinkers, or Jordan Peterson. Luckily, we can do something if it's for 2030, but we must act, that's the point. We must act. So I'm going to make you see the other part of the video.
Additional fun facts about Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum. They've got a Young Leaders program, which is a 5-year indoctrination program into their principles. The goal of the program is to create world leaders who don't answer to their people because they don't care about them. They answer to their bosses at the World Economic Forum. Graduates of the program include admirable world leaders that are suspiciously in lockstep with the Great Reset, such as Justin Trudeau, Francis Macron, and Mark Zuckerberg. Sponsoring partners of the World Economic Forum's Young Global Leaders program have been the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and Google. I wonder why Google censors and shapes information to be in exact support of the World Economic Forum's narrative. Oh, another fun fact. The World Economic Forum is predicting a worldwide cyber attack. I'm pretty much a wizard at predicting the things I'm going to do too. The very concerned Schwab believes the cyber attack could bring a complete halt to our power grid, transportation, hospital services, and to our society as a whole. The World Economic Forum then simulated the cyber attack. Simulated or planned? I'm not sure, but they said it was a simulation, so it's probably best to just believe them. Oh, also the World Economic Forum, along with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, hosted Event 201, which oddly enough played out exactly as they planned. Or simulated, or whatever. Let's move on. And here's a picture of Klaus Schwab sitting in front of his statue of Vladimir Lenin. I wonder why he's got a statue of one of the most murderous world leaders in history. Lenin killed an estimated 5 million people. And finally, remember Schwab's whole thing about you'll own nothing and be happy about it? What's the World Economic Forum's plan to make that happen? Well, it's probably nothing, but consider this. BlackRock is an investment firm with $9 trillion under management, which is a higher GDP than every country on Earth, aside from the US and China. Therefore, it turns out BlackRock has more political and financial influence than the Federal Reserve and most governments. Sounds cool, but what's the connection with the World Economic Forum? Well, again, and it's probably nothing, but BlackRock CEO Larry Fink is also just a board member of the World Economic Forum. Well, that's super convenient, and probably just a coincidence. Is the World Economic Forum and BlackRock colluding in corporatism, where an unelected corporate elite dictates top down to the population? Well, they couldn't be doing that because they'd have to infiltrate the government, which they haven't done. Except for, in one of Joe Biden's first appointees once he took office, he named Brian Deese to be the director of National Economic Council. Brian Deese came from BlackRock, where he was a global head of sustainable investing, and now he's Biden's main advisor for economic policy. But Biden's making the policy decisions, not the unelected corporate elites at BlackRock and the World Economic Forum. Of course Biden's making all the decisions. Let's not be silly. Oh, look, there's a picture of Biden in the audience at the World Economic Forum. Oh, and also Kamala Harris's chief economic advisor is Michael Pyle. He came from BlackRock, where he was a global chief economic strategist, overseeing the strategy for investing $9 trillion. Well, it looks like corporatism, but it's probably not. But if it was, it would actually be a viable strategy for BlackRock and the World Economic Forum to own everything and for you to own nothing. Oh, fun fact, BlackRock is buying up single-family homes at an alarming rate, oftentimes paying 20 to 50% above asking price, so normal people like you and I can't own the homes. Now, there is an interesting pattern to all this. You know how you hear about ancient tyrannical rulers who would rule over their dumb people by saying things like, yeah, if you don't do all of this slave labor and let me sleep with your wives, then God's going to make you all perish in a deadly storm. Well, God told me, and because I'm elite, I have access to this knowledge and you don't. So you better do as I say or you're going to die. Well, us peasants can't perceive what the king can, so we better do as he says. Go ahead and bang my wife. And thank you for doing it for my protection, King. Good old fear-mongering, a predictable pattern as old as time itself. But with Klaus and the World Economic Forum, it's climate change is gonna kill you, disease is gonna kill you, and a cyber attack's gonna get ya. So you better do as we say, or you're gonna die. I don't know, the weather looks pretty good to me. Why don't you ever smile, Klaus? You look like a sociopath. No, you don't understand. We elites have access to knowledge that you don't. So you better listen to us or you're gonna die. Same old fun pattern of fear-mongering. They know of the scary problems and only they have the solutions. So listen up or you're gonna die. Gotcha, Klaus. Nothing new here. We see you. In conclusion to the question, is Klaus Schwab the most dangerous man in the world? Here's his top guy again.
Humans are now hackable animals. You know, the whole idea that humans have, you know, this, they have this soul or spirit and they have free will and nobody knows what's happening inside me. So whatever I choose, whether in the election or whether in the supermarket, this is my free will, that's over.
Free will, that's over.
It will indeed be over. If you outsource your thinking to outside influences and take the easy way out by choosing obedience over bravery. Doing so makes you very susceptible to being manipulated by fear. And if this happens, you will fail at remaining a free, sovereign individual. But here's how Schwab and his friends, who sociopathically never smile, fail at their great reset, and you succeed at remaining a free, sovereign individual. Be guided by your own critical thinking and what your heart and soul knows is right, and choose bravery over obedience. Obedience or bravery? Outsource your perspectives or do your own critical thinking? We are in the process of either the Great Reset or the Great Awakening, and the choice isn't Klaus Schwab's. The choice is yours.
Yeah, I don't think that there's much to comment. I literally can't believe to live in this timeline. Like, so many things are happening, like Ukraine war, COVID-19, the Great Reset, you'll owe nothing and you'll be happy. It's just a big hit. I hope things are going to get resolved, but we must act. That's the point of my video. Well, bye. See you next video.